KPBS On Demand is supported by La Jolla Playhouse, presenting The Family Album, a new musical featuring original power pop songs. Mia, a young musician on the verge of success, returns to the home she once left behind. On stage now. Tickets at lajollaplayhouse.org.
Welcome in San Diego, it's Jade Hindman. On today's show, the cost of living is high, but a recent KPBS report explores the cost of dying in San Diego. This is KPBS Midday Edition, connecting our communities through conversation. On this show, we often talk about San Diego's high cost of living, but what about the cost of dying? Well, turns out the burial process can reach well into 5 figures. It's a huge burden for families who are already navigating impossible grief. KPBS health reporter Heidi de Marco has the story. She joins me now. Heidi, welcome.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. Tell me, what made you want to work on this particular story?
Well, it came about from one story that I worked on about death doulas, or trying to work on, actually. It led me into this whole world of death and dying, and I just started meeting different people. And I started learning about the different options at the end of life, and I thought it was fascinating. I had not heard of a lot of them, so I thought it would be of interest for people to know that they have options at the end of life.
You spoke with Penny Wah, who is a death doula here in San Diego. Tell me about her and how she describes her work.
Well, I met her at one of these death cafes, and, she has a personal connection. She saw what her mother went through during, her end of life journey. And she said, I think I can make a difference in this space. So she created the Death Network, and it's just this hub where you can learn about different options, kind of learn how to start the conversation about end of life. And she decided to become a death doula, and she worked in a funeral home for a little while and just kind of wanted to branch out. And now she counsels people at the end of life.
Well, here's some of what Penny had to say.
What I learned was that we are so uneducated on what death and dying can look like here in the U.S., and people are just making rash, urgent decisions.
Wow. So, for many families, this conversation around death and money is one that happens after the loss of a loved one. What does that look like?
Unfortunately, that's the norm, right? I think death usually is unexpected, and so people are not prepared for that. So the way that it's been described to me by all these different people is that they're kind of faced with these decisions in the moment of, being very vulnerable, and there's a little bit of a sticker shock there, right? They're not prepared for it, and they just kind of go with the flow, right? Like they make decisions in the heat of the moment, and at the end they don't know all their options, so it's very unfortunate. She also mentioned that a lot of the times what was heartbreaking was that she would see children who had no idea what their parents wanted for their end of life, so she is a big advocate for having those conversations before the crisis.
Yeah. Tell me, what does it look like to work with a death doula, Heidi? How does that work out?
Well, you can start early on. You don't have to be in hospice care or anything like that. You can, work with them way before, just to plan things out, to take care of those documents that, people really don't have, right? There's a really low percentage of people that have advanced directives. And so just to kind of get your affairs in order so that when the time comes, your loved ones don't have to guess and maybe make decisions that you didn't want, or, maybe are not within budget. We make a lot of decisions because we love them so much that we want to, get this and get that. But the way she describes it is that they can just, go and plan things ahead of time, or you can come, you can work with a death doula when, it is that time and you kind of want to have that hand holding and just kind of guide you through that process. And there's a lot of things that, they offer in terms of just, maybe having, a living funeral, something that the loved one who is on hospice can participate in it, kind of enjoy that moment. And I've seen a little bit of that in some stories that I did where people are gather, while the person is still alive and just kind of share that moment. And there are so many other things, right? Maybe like having a viewing in your home versus at a funeral home. So there's a lot of options that they can kind of help guide you through.
So that's interesting. You learned about the cost behind all kinds of options for burial as well, starting with the most familiar options, traditional burial and flame cremation. Starting, though, with traditional burials, what's the price tag there?
For a traditional burial, it's about, I was told, $1,200 to $1,300. And, that it just doesn't include like the land, but it's also labor, it's the upkeep, it's the burial vault. So a lot of, goes into it, maybe the memorial or placard, things like that. But we are here in San Diego about $2,000 more than the national average.
And there's additional expenses that come with a funeral home too, right?
Right. I mean, you have the cemetery and then you have the funeral home. And the funeral home takes care of the body. So that, includes the embalming, taking care of the body, preparing it for viewing, maybe having some sort of, ceremony. A lot of things kind of can add up, which I had no clue about, which is maybe if they have to pick up the body after hours, that's an extra charge. If it's on a weekend, little things like that maybe you were not aware of, and then it kind of just starts adding up.
And a death doula would come in and prepare you for all of these things.
Right. And and be there with you, right? It's when you think of like a birth doula, right? They're helping you in that moment. Just
and
kind
leading
of
up to it.
right.
Mhm.
And just being your advocate, really, right? And so it's just kind of being there for you and supporting you and guiding you so that you don't make these, rash decisions at the end.
Yeah. What is the cost breakdown for a flame cremation?
So a flame cremation is usually what people will go for nowadays because it is significantly lower. An average here in San Diego is about, excuse me, $1,500. Excuse me. And, that includes the flame cremation, the urn, but it's very simple, right? So it's the most simple and cost effective right now. So it's a very popular choice.
But there's also new options gaining popularity, like water cremation, for example. You visited White Rosa Aqua Cremation in Escondido. Here's Executive Director Kayla Flores describing the process.
Escondido.
It's basically returning your body to its natural state, which is amino acids, peptides, sugars, protein, and water.
Then there's burial at sea.
Wow, so that's very interesting. So there are all of these different options, and obviously something that a doula would be familiar with. Tell me, what did you learn about the water options here?
Right. I mean, fascinating. It was fascinating. The water cremation, right? She gave me a tour of this like chamber where the bodies go in. It's kind of like she said, returning the body to its natural state. There's, the water and the pH balance kind of, helps the body dissolve, and just you're left with more ashes actually than a flame cremation, she told me. And it's just it's very fascinating. And in terms of like price, it is a little more expensive, but a lot of that has to do, she told me, because of the process. It's an all electric process, and inflation has hit every industry, including this one. And so since electricity has gone up, so it's hard, it's a little harder. But the average right now would be about $3,800.
What about burial at sea?
Burial at sea, it can range, right? I mean, it's very beautiful to have gone out there with them to see what they do. It's just, you can have it be unattended, which means that you can view it from maybe a dock, and they will do it for you. Maybe they film it for you, and They'll send you that. They have to go far out enough to be able to do, like, scatter your ashes. They put it in this beautiful biodegradable, basket with flowers, and then they just let it go. And you see, the flowers and roses and just scatter into the sea. And then they also have something where you can have your family come, right? Or you can have loved ones come, and they get on the boat and they go out there, and, they're part of the process, the way he describes it, with music and maybe the person's favorite cocktail. It's kind of an event. And then you have something where it's like a full body burial, where you have the full body. They have to go out a little further, into the ocean for that. And, the body is shrouded and, let go into the ocean. And it's just, it's fascinating to know that these options are available.
Interesting. So next year, California will add another option, human composting. Can you describe that process?
Right. This is, the way they incorporate. I think it's like all the material, the fleshy material, your bones, everything goes into this, composting, process. It's about 3 months, I believe. And they take it out, you put it back in. So it's a back and forth. And then you're left with, a lot of compost material that you can use to plant, in your garden, to plant, flowers, whatever you like, and just kind of have your loved one with you, or you can give a little bit out to each family member. But it's something that it's more, very green. A lot of these options, like the water cremation, the water burial, they're leaning more towards green options, and that's also gaining popularity.
How much would something like that cost?
I think right now it is about $8,000.
Mm-hmm.
And once it becomes available in California, it'll be the same. Right now, it's available out of state. So if you wanted to do that, you still could do that, but it's an extra cost to fly the remains out to a different state and then bring them back.
Experts say the most important decision may be, to have the conversation before they're forced to make a decision, rather. What is their advice for starting the conversation around this? When do you know, like, hey, I should reach out to a death doula?
Right. I mean, I think it's something that we all kind of will have different ways to do it. I think that's why they're trying to make these death cafes more popular and just kind of do them in different ways, so that the conversation, so it could be more comfortable, and a lot goes into it. It depends on the family's religion or culture or background, and so they just getting it started beforehand. I think if you are dealing with older parents, or you kind of have that conversation way before someone has to go into assisted living or a hospice. So I think they're trying to be more out in the community. A lot of these death doulas and folks like from all the people that I met for this story just go out into community events, and they try to spread the word about the options and just kind of try to normalize the conversation around death and dying.
Mm-hmm. What is your approach to telling these stories in a compassionate way like you do?
Wow. I think it starts with one story, right? It'll start with, the first story I did with this, it just came out of nowhere, actually. And it's word of mouth, honestly. Like, once you produce one story and they see your work, and then I ask, oh, hey, I'm trying to find out about this, and they will introduce me to other people. And I really just see it as, I'm very fortunate, and I feel very honored to be able to tell these stories. And, I try to do them with as much respect and dignity. And, as a health reporter, it's, always dealing with people at the most vulnerable of times. But this in particular, I mean, it's even more so, right? So just to try and make sure that I'm doing the best I can to represent, the folks that I'm interviewing, and so that the audience can also get that connection.
That is great. I've been speaking with Heidi de Marco. She's health reporter for KPBS. Heidi, thank you so very much for your reporting.
Thank you for having me.
That's our show for today. I'm your host, Jade Hindman. Thanks for tuning in to Midday Edition. Be sure to have a great day on purpose, everyone.
KPBS On Demand is supported by Copa Airlines, offering nonstop service from San Diego to Panama with connections to Latin America and the Caribbean. The stopover program includes a stay in Panama before continuing to destinations throughout the Americas. More information at copa.com.